The ego is a mental construct. It's a mental construct that turns into a very physical thing in a sense. It's not strictly physical, but it lives within your mind to the point that it controls and dictates your physical body and your actions. So basically, every person comes onto Earth and then they develop a solidified sense of I. And that I, anytime there's a perceived or real or perceived threat to it, they become extremely defensive as if they themselves are going to be vanquished or eviscerated or annihilated. And the reason they do that is because they identify with the mental image, because they are not fluidly moving with what life is giving to them. And they see the ego's promises, whatever the ego is desperately looking after, most of which are based on survival, and most of which are on other things which are based on just fear-based things, whether it's intense greed, whether it's the intense need to be right, the intense need that nobody talks to you or treats you in a way that you wouldn't like. It could be anything. The ego vehemently defends against these things, and when these things do occur, which they always will, in the sense that you may lose money, every person has lost money, somebody questions you or challenges you, you don't like it, and you'll respond in a way that is harsh, that is very overly defensive and unnecessary. Um, so the reason the ego exists is to defend and to protect you, at least in your own mind. And it takes negative things and makes them out to be bigger than what they actually are. When it comes to moving past the ego, many times it takes a series of repeated and long-term painful events occurring. So in my life, for example, when I was growing up, my parents had a lot of money, and I lived in a really nice big house in New Jersey, and everything was good. My family was unified. There was no problem. And then my father left the house when I was 8 years old in the year 2000. I was almost 8, actually. And over the course of the last 20 years, and then my family lost their money in divorce, and everything that I had essentially was gone. I moved to Florida and started a new life here. And just as time went on, I just kept losing more and more things. My grandmother died in 2010. My other grandmother died in 2015. My father died in 2018. All these things and people that were big in my life, they left. Their identities were completely eviscerated because of death. My identity continued to change because I was initially an infant, and then I was a boy, and I had my family, and then I was essentially the man of the household from the time I was like 8 or something, because I was, it was me and my mom, and still is. So my roles have just kept changing. I've gone from being a tennis player to being a music person to being a speaker. Everything has changed, and I can't hold an ego in any of these things because I'm only so good at each one. Within the realm of each of these things, there's a whole host of skills, and I don't possess all of them in any regard. And even if I did, something is going to come along at some point that somebody's better at, I can't make that sound, for example. These birds are better vocalists than I am in that respect. So the ego essentially is a sense of identification with things as you see them now, as they are now, and what you predict for the future. And it leads to a lot of horrific problems that you wouldn't expect until you're actually within it and living it and seeing how bad it is. Anytime you feel threatened, anytime you're fearing things excessively, anytime you then build up a false life in service of the ego, like the wrong career path, done for the wrong reasons, trying to manipulate people to achieve your ends, whatever that may be. All these are egoic behaviors. So that's what it is. The next question is how to move beyond it. Many times when you see the error of your ways through enough time, through enough pain, you slowly begin to change and allow yourself to let go of these ideas. And they're really just ideas, honestly, that you're clenching onto as difficultly and as harshly as you are. It could also be awareness of deeper powers within yourself, a deeper spirit, a deeper trust within the universe that things are going to work for you regardless. That allows you to let go of the ego. If you just trust, if you trust that things are going to be okay, that helps a lot. The issue is there's always going to be a threat that comes up later. Somebody does something that's legitimately threatening or seems to be legitimately threatening, and in your mind your ego is going to come back. But it's a process. The whole ego undoing is a process, but as it continues to occur, the whole thing can be undone in the course of time, and then a person can live with freedom, and they can live with internal freedom, and their soul can come out vibrantly and affect the people around them in a good way. They can be healthy on the inside, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and they can create an amazing life for themselves and the people around them, because it will be dictated by higher powers than just the solid, crystallized, unchanging, and hostile powers and forces of the ego. Any person who's struggling through whatever ego battle, just know that with enough love, with enough time, with enough acceptance of the ego, don't try to fight it, and with enough trust in the universe, in time, these things can get a lot better. And you can live the life of freedom and happiness that you want.